Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. And I have a special guest, and I'm sure you recognize him because he's been on many a time after a Grand Slam, and that's Gill. And we're going to be going over Wimbledon 2022, reviewing it from the men's and the women's side. Gill, how you doing?
I'm good, Faizan. How are you?
I'm good. We were just talking about the weather and how it's both, well, good on both sides, although I'm maybe not handling it as well as you are, the heat that is, being a Brit. But it's all good. It's all good. Right. On top of I guess Wimbledon's just finished, and I don't live too far from here, and well, from Wimbledon that is. And there was, I think, it was a strange year, I guess, given that there were no Russians, but Russians allowed to play. Sorry, even there was obviously Rafa pulled out as well, and there was kind of just the ups and downs. I think Iga Swiatek went out early. It was just it was quite an interesting tournament to dive into. So I guess if we start with the men's, and we can get Novak Djokovic out of the way, because I feel like everyone's going to talk about him. And I think 21st Slam, 7th Wimbledon, 4th consecutive title as well, and I think he saved the best till last in the final. But how did you assess, I guess, generally his tournament?
Well, there were some blips, there were some slow starts, but he was pretty emphatic about the way he responded to digging himself holes in this tournament. I mean, I thought the last 3 sets against Sinner were an example of a comeback from 2 sets to love down, where I don't think there was any choke whatsoever. I thought for the most part it was just Novak raising his level to a height that Sinner could not match. The Van Rijthoven match was a convincing finish after the second set. The Norrie match, I don't think Cam played great, but still Novak was super, super clean. And then I think Djokovic showed his class against a good version of Kyrgios. I was really happy with how Kyrgios performed in that final. I thought he gave it really his best in terms of what he's capable of, and Djokovic was really excellent. And in that match, he didn't play a horrible first set. It wasn't like some of the other instances. Kyrgios just served better than anyone could possibly serve in the opening set, and his serving level dropped a little, and Novak's returning level rose a little bit, and we can get into the match in more detail. But I felt it was another very convincing Wimbledon title from Djokovic. I think the only player in the field who could have tested him to the max is Rafa.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like, and we discussed, I think, in the preview where we were saying that, I guess, for the guys like Novak and Rafa, they've had so many years at Wimbledon, even though Rafa hasn't played the last couple because of missing it or injury. These other people coming through who are younger, they've missed a year because of COVID, and then they missed, or they haven't had as much experience just because of age. So I feel like there's a massive gap, and I know you don't like to call it a swing, so you'll say a period of the calendar. That's grass.
No. Swing is okay. I'm good with swing. I don't like season.
Season, okay, yeah.
It's not long enough to be a season.
Yeah, it's a short swing, compact swing.
Swing is good. Swing is good.
Swing is good. Yeah. So it's a very short swing for sure. And I know obviously there's a tournament going on now, but that's after Wimbledon. There's always a grass court tournament, a hard court tournament after a slam. But generally, there's not too many tournaments to enter. And like Alcaraz, for example, was injured, and there's still, even though I think the gap between the French and Wimbledon is slightly longer than it used to be, it's still very, very short in the scope of things. So I feel like people struggle, and it's such an extreme change from clay to grass. And obviously Rafa and Novak done it so many times, they've got that in the bag. So it'll be interesting to see whether some of the other players in the coming years are able to bridge the gap, especially someone, I guess, Tsitsipas, and we'll probably talk about him and Kyrgios' match, I'm sure, because it's probably the most kind of dramatic match of the, potentially dramatic match of the tournament on and off the court. But, he's gone really, really intensely into the grass court swing and said, I'm going to play all the tournaments and try and give myself as much experience as possible. Didn't quite go the way he wanted, but you can see kind of incremental improvements. and someone maybe like a Felix who did pretty well last year, but upset by Maxim Cressy, and we can talk about him in a bit. But yeah, I agree on the Novak front. It's against Kyrgios, he didn't play particularly badly in the first set. I thought he played pretty well, but it was just a case of Kyrgios just served so well, and I feel like he was really struggling to read the serve. And I guess the only thing I would say is that what I found is that when Novak hasn't played someone before, or that he's only played someone maybe one or two times, but it hasn't been long matches, he does take like a set to really adjust and implement a game plan to then combat what the opponent brings. And I guess that does then tie into what happened with Cam Norrie in the first set, because he played Cam Norrie at the ATP World Tour Finals last year. There was only 2 sets. He beat him really easily 6-2, 6-2. And you kind of feel, well, it's a different surface on grass. And he's probably trying to figure out, okay, well, how's Cam going to play? And he was playing pretty well this tournament. And the first set, he did play a pretty good standard. And I felt the same thing happened with Kyrgios, although I feel like even if Novak was playing a good level, Kyrgios probably takes a set just because of how well he served. And he didn't really give him any chances apart from the juice game serving out. But he was 40-love up in that game anyway. So you almost feel like, he just did so well with it. So generally, like, I thought the way Novak was moving was great as well, because when these guys, as they get older, like Rafa and Roger and Novak, I always tend to try and look and see, are they slowing down a little bit? Like, in the points in terms of where they're moving. But no, I mean, we saw the iconic, splits and backhand cross pass against Sinner, which is probably like shot of the tournament, incredible, like athleticism and just the way that he's able to generate power in such a, for most players would be a compromising position where they'd slice. He's able to hit like topspin forehands, topspin backhands, and with power as well. So it doesn't seem to be slowing down in that aspect. And that's a real positive for him. And then the serve, I thought, improved throughout the tournament as well. And it's something that obviously I feel like it's now almost Federer-esque on grass, if that makes sense, where Federer used gets himself out of trouble and used to a lot in Wimbledon with the serve. And I feel like Djokovic with the first serve does have that now to kind of fall upon as a crutch at times.
I don't think it's far off from Roger. I don't think the ace numbers would be comparable. I'm pretty sure Roger would still get quite a bit more. But part of Novak's success on serve is just how error-free he can remain on the +1 ball aggressively. He's not playing it safe, but it just feels like in some of these matches, when the return comes back, Novak is doing damage on the +1 forehand and sometimes following it up into the net as well. And he just never seems to miss it. So there's a certain level of consistency of attack that I think really helps him in on serve and winning those first serve points. Because if you break it down and you look at 0 through 4 shot rallies, there are a lot of players on tour who really litter up the stat sheet on the third shot of the rally when they're on serve. So they'll do a lot of damage, a lot of winners, a lot of forced errors, but a lot of unforced errors. Novak keeps it so clean on his on that third shot of the rally, and he still is able to do a lot of damage.
Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting you talk about rally length, because wasn't it in the first set or two against Kyrgios, there was a stat showing that I think there were 10 rallies that were 9 shots or more, and Kyrgios had won 7 out of 10. And I guess we can talk about Kyrgios more in depth in a bit, but it was interesting that, I guess Djokovic wasn't, from the back of the court early on anyway, was actually not having the better of those exchanges. But I guess, as you're saying as well, he's so good in the shorter points now. He just is able to also win those points. And then when he starts to get a feel into the match and I guess adapt to how someone's hitting the ball from the back of the court and the different slices and spins that the opponent's putting on the ball, then he's able to also then stick with them longer term. So he kind of has those different layers to his game, and I feel like he's definitely increased the amount of tools in his tool bag that he's able to utilize from now. And he's able to just kind of sift through them. Whereas in the past it was, maybe I'm going to grind you, I'm going to outlast you, I'm going to grind, and I can do that better than you, and you're not going to be able to stick with me. Now it's, I can play aggressively with the 1+, with the serve 1+1 on the forehand. I can come to the net as well, and I know that I'm solid enough to come to the net and approach well, especially on the backhand side. I guess the only area of his game which I think will always be there is the overhead, but wouldn't say it's terrible. It's just the only kind of weakness, if you would say, in his game. But everything else is, at least what we're talking a 7-8 at least out of 10.
Yeah, the overhead is an inexploitable weakness. There's no way to actually exploit that, because if you give them
Lob the ball up.
overheads, yeah, I mean, we talk about this. If you give them overheads, that's not a good strategy. So
Yeah. Exactly, because it's probably a bad strategy, because eventually he'll then start warming into it, and then he'll start feeling confident. It's almost like when you play and someone says just hit the backhand, and eventually they think, okay, actually, yeah, I'm kind of getting, this is feeling nice. It keeps on coming to my backhand. Okay, this is what I need to do, and they kind of adjust, and eventually you can't. It's like practice makes perfect, right? And I feel like that's the same thing with Novak. And the overhead's not that bad that you can just lob the ball up and he's going to miss. That's the other thing as well. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But in terms of, I guess, the accomplishment as well, did you back him to win this year?
not pre-tournament, because I picked Nadal, because I thought I like Djokovic on grass better than I like Nadal on grass. I know that's not a bold statement, but I want to throw that out there. I thought mentally it would have been an advantageous position for Rafa had he made the Wimbledon final here. I felt there would have been very, very little pressure. He would have been able to play pretty freely. Wimbledon is not a tournament that he has expected himself to win in recent years. He hadn't played it in 3 years. He had won the first 2 majors of the year. I don't think he's the kind of person who would have been thinking about the Grand Slam at that time. Meanwhile, Novak had fallen behind 2 in the Slam race. No guarantee he is able to play the US Open, coming off of a loss against Nadal in Paris. All of just the trauma, you can go back to the Olympics, not to mention the US Open final that he lost against Medvedev. There were so many negative experiences that Novak had. I think he knew how important it was for him to win this Wimbledon. And with all of that pressure, my logic pre-tournament was that he might not be able to play his best in a final against Rafa.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think definitely no one. Well, I think himself anyway wouldn't have put a lot of pressure on himself to win it. And then I guess maybe as well the matchup in France, in Paris, where Djokovic lost to Nadal. I feel like he really thought that was his match to win. And the mental aspect, I guess, with the crowd. I wonder as well how the crowd would have been. Would the crowd have been on Rafa's side? Would it have been on Novak's? Would it have been half and half? Would it have been slightly more to Rafa? Yeah, we do. We know it's going to be a Rafa, right? So, and I do feel that maybe since the US Open final, where Novak got a taste of what it's like to have the crowd on his side, like not just there's definitely crowds on his side, but as in the majority, right? Like pretty much everyone in the crowd is cheering his name. They want him to kind of win or come back in that instance. I feel like he was crying, he got really emotional over it, and I just think from that moment, I feel like there's been a little bit not of a chip on his shoulder, but look, I've won 20 slams or 21 slams. You guys need to give me what's due. And that's why after the French, when he said 99% of the crowd was a Rafa, that's why no wonder he came back from 5-3 down to win. And I thought, I can't imagine Novak ever saying that in the past. And I feel like there was maybe a similar, that could have been a similar story in the final. I don't think it's necessarily to do with skill level, as you're saying. It's more the mental aspect. But we know how important the mental aspect can be in those big, big matches. So I guess we'll never know. And who knows if we'll ever see them play at Wimbledon again. But yeah, it would have been intriguing for sure. But a fantastic achievement from Novak nonetheless as well, and played everyone in front of him. And I think, as you said, he didn't really look in trouble at any point. Yes, at 2 sets to love down against Sinner, you're thinking, oh, this is interesting. But then, the next 3 sets were just straightforward, and he just turned it on. And Sinner kind of wasn't able to, I guess, keep up that level of tennis, which was troubling Novak. And he adapted as he always does and came back. So that was great to see. On Rafa, then I guess we can touch upon him. I mean, were you surprised that he made the well. You're not surprised with the semi-finals because you predicted him to win, as I did. Actually, before the tournament, but people were saying it was bold, and I guess it was bold in the end. Were you, I guess, surprised first of all that he struggled in some of the matches to kind of get through them, and then also were you surprised that he didn't play the Kyrgios match as well? Would you have thought maybe he'll try and do maybe what he did against Fritz in the last couple of sets, or was it just a question of he's Rafa? If he doesn't feel like he's going to be able to play 100%, then he's not going to come out, right?
On the first question, no, I wasn't surprised. I was look, he was winning the matches, and then everyone was like, "Oh no, his level," and I just didn't understand that at all. Hadn't played on grass in 3 years, isn't ever really comfortable first couple rounds of Wimbledon. You know, it's never looked pretty. It's never looked easy. Not to mention he missed some training time. He was on crutches for a week after the foot ablation thing. So compromised a little bit on the training, no grass in 3 years, not great in that spot anyway. I wasn't surprised that he didn't look great against the, Berankis and Cerundolo, who I thought played great and just picked up an awesome win over Ruud. On the second question, I did think he'd play. I did think he'd play the semifinal against Kyrgios. I mean, it came down to a couple things. One, you kind of get tired of doubting Rafa's health at a certain point, and you just kind of trust that he'll figure it out. So there was certainly part of it was that. Then you kind of look at what Novak did at the Australian Open in 2021 when he had a tear in his oblique in this case. So but his midsection, same muscle group, and he beat Taylor Fritz just like Nadal did.
Yeah.
But he ended up getting quite a bit better in the next couple of matches, and he won the major. He won the Australian Open. So there was a history of a player playing with that injury, and I thought Nadal would be able to kind of use modern medicine and figure out a way to do it. But I was very clear watching him warm up his serves on the day he withdrew that the serve was just a mess. I mean, he just couldn't serve. And did he, would he have really had a chance to beat not just Kyrgios, but also Djokovic without a serve? Absolutely not. Yeah,
no, agreed. I think he probably was thinking, look, realistically, chances against. Well, a lot of people were saying, if it was someone else, would he have played?
That's total garbage.
I just think I don't think it's that. He's probably just thinking it's a 7mm tear. If I continue to play, it's going to get worse. I could potentially jeopardize my chance at the US, where arguably he's got better chance of winning because 1, he's won there 4 times. 2, it's a slower surface, which he likes, and 3, Novak's probably not going to be there. So
he leads the head-to-head against Kyrgios 6-3. He's beaten them, I think it was the last 3, maybe the last 4, but 2 of them at majors, Australian Open, Wimbledon.
Yeah.
The notion that Rafa doesn't want to play Nick, like he's afraid of Nick, is just absolutely absurd.
Yeah, I couldn't believe people were saying that. I was very surprised by that, and I was just thinking, what, lads? And I actually picked Nick to make the semis, which he did, and I guess if
well done.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. And if he was fully fit, I had Rafa beating Kyrgios, so I kind of got that semi right. I was like, oh, amazing. Normally terrible my predictions, but yeah, I mean, it was a strange one. But yeah, I think Rafa is a bit of a shame because he served better as the tournament went on until obviously he had the ab tear, I guess, because it was already some type of niggle.
Can I tell you what I had? What do you have? I had Kyrgios beating Tsitsipas.
Yeah.
And then I had RBA taking out Kyrgios. RBA got COVID.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Right? So it was RBA, Berrettini, Tsitsipas in that half as well. So everyone was like, and I picked Kyrgios before, like I'd heard any of that. I was like, no. I said, no, it's going to be Tsitsipas. I was like, he'll beat RBA, and I was like, he'll beat Berrettini. And everyone was like, are you crazy? And I just said, you know what? I feel like I watched quite a few matches of him in the tournaments prior. I was just watching him play, and I was just thinking, you know what? this is like the first Wimbledon in a long time when he's actually taking it seriously. Like he's gone to quite a few tournaments, he's playing, and then when the first round came when he played against Paul Jubb, and I was like, oh no, this doesn't look good. Like 5 sets is struggling so much to like get through it. But obviously in the end had a good tournament. So yeah, we can talk about him. I mean, look, we can focus on the tennis first. It was a fantastic tournament considering that I don't think anyone really picked him to make the final. That is, I mean, everyone's calling me crazy for picking him in the semi-final. So final is like an extra step, and I know he got the walkover, but it is what it is. He can't help that. Obviously, a very valiant effort, I thought, in the final. I watched your analysis, and you were saying that he had a couple, maybe two or three blips in that final, and it did cost him. And I agree, it was the 40 or the love 40 game in the second set when he was 5-3 down, 3 break points, ended up having 4 break points in that game. Didn't take any of them. Kind of Novak saved a couple, but probably should have taken at least one. And he was 40 love up in the third set and then blew that and got broken, lost that set. And then, of course, the tiebreaker where really he just imploded in that tiebreaker. And I was thinking, please be the Nick Kyrgios that played the tiebreakers against Tsitsipas rather than the Kyrgios that has been playing tiebreakers throughout most of the year. Because I think his tiebreak record going into the Kyrgios match was like 3-6. Like, it was horrendous. And I remember thinking, like, he just hates tiebreakers. As soon as he gets a tiebreaker, it's almost like frustrates him. And then, especially if he loses the first point or two, that's it. It's like he just almost throws it away. It's just crazy. He just spirals completely. I feel like tiebreakers are killer.
Double fault on the first one.
Yeah.
In the fourth set.
What do you think about that, actually? Because I was doing the commentary for it, and he obviously went for a first serve on the second serve, and he hits an ace, and everyone's saying, "Oh, that's genius and a great point." And it was this close to clipping the line. Like, it wasn't far out. Do you think, in that position, you're watching as like a pundit, or were you thinking, oh, you know what? Should he maybe just hits a kick serve at 105 miles an hour rather than trying to go for the big first serve?
No, I think he was doing the right thing because I don't think he was winning any rallies. I was getting dominated from the back of the court. So you have to hit a great second serve. I don't know if he, maybe he got it a little off in the sense that maybe hit with a lot of pace, but don't try to paint the line. Maybe go a little safer, but keep it big. But I'm nitpicking there. I mean, at the end of the day, do I think he needed to hit really big, great second serves? Yes. I think if he was going to win the match, that's how he was going to have to hit his second serve, and he was going to have to just make them.
Yeah, because at that point, Novak had the first set, he was just struggling to read the serve completely. And then Kyrgios was completely, I guess, cashing in on the kick serve to the backhand on the second serve, which Sinner, to be fair, had some success with against Novak. And on grass, you think, oh, mate, you're probably not going to be able to utilize it that much against Novak. But actually, it was actually working. And I know you talked about it, and I agree. It's definitely his worst return, the backhand return to the kick serves. But against Kyrgios, I think he then started to get a better feel for that, and it started to then become obsolete, really. And then as the match wore on anyway, he started to read the serve better. And he said it in the post-match presser that I don't know whether it was, because I know he said in the past, and he says it's almost impossible to read with, I guess, the ball toss, maybe the body shape. So I wonder whether it was more he was almost anticipating patterns of play. I'm thinking, okay, well, he's just served 2 out of the tee, then 1 out wide. And then was he... I feel like Novak's that intelligent in terms of tennis IQ that he might have been thinking that. And I feel like subconsciously as a player, you probably do have some patterns, even if you try not to, and you try and mix it up. There's probably a pattern or sequence that ends up kind of being formed. And with Nick, I feel like it's no different eventually, as kind of complicated as it is. And I feel like Novak, especially like the serves down the tee, he started to read those really well. And those are the ones that, of course, you've got less time on as well. But that was impressive. I don't know what your read was on the returning.
I'm not positive about, I didn't see, I don't think he was reading the return, like he had a tip. Sometimes like Agassi famously had a tip on Becker, right? Becker would point his tongue where he was serving or something like that. I might be slightly off on who on it might have not been Boris, but someone pointed their tongue on where they wanted to serve. And then what you do, Andy Roddick has talked about this too. If you do have a tip on your opponent, you got to choose when to use it. You can't use it every time because then they'll figure it out that you know. Anyway, I'm not sure Novak had anything like that. It might have just been that his reactions got quicker. He started to read it off the racket just a split second quicker. But I think the other thing that's very important is a lot of players will lean the right direction against Nick, and the serve is still too good. And so Novak is skilled enough where if he gets the correct read on it and he's leaning the correct direction, regardless of if Kyrgios hit it 135, Djokovic is skilled enough to hit a great return back and actually capitalize on making the correct read. So I think that's an underrated aspect to it.
No, agreed. And I think the most impressive thing for me was the fact that it wasn't even that he started to read the serve better and make them into play. It was the amount of depth that he was able to make on those returns as well. Like, it wasn't just like slow, like short returns, kind of looping it down the middle. It wasn't. It was actually returns where he'd get back into neutral very, very quickly. And it would get him into the point straight away, and he wasn't on the back foot. And that, to me, was really impressive. And the fact as well that he then started to neutralize Kyrgios coming to the net, which is one of the biggest parts of his game, is serve volleying, even behind the second serve. And I feel like Djokovic just didn't scare him, but put him off coming to the net, because there were so many points that he lost at the net because either the approach wasn't good enough and he got past, or Djokovic would go for the passing shot down the line and he would get a racket on it, but wasn't able to manipulate it back into court. And then he did the same with the drop shots. He just kept on dragging Nick forward. And at the start, it wasn't working, and Nick was really good at getting to the balls and kind of manipulating his hands. We know he's got great hands in the net generally. But then as the match wore on, and then Djokovic was able to, I guess, dictate in the points more, the drop shot ended up being so effective that Nick would get to it, but he was almost kind of just, he wasn't getting there enough time to actually do anything with it, and either kind of get it back in and Djokovic would finish the point, or he'd kind of go into the net or barely get there. I know you mentioned something similar as well. Was that your read on it in terms of as the match wore on?
I think it was slightly different, because he did go to the net more, as the match wore on, not less. I felt, if anything, Kyrgios was scared off of the baseline, because he started to really start to lose. In the first set, as you mentioned earlier, he was hanging in there and holding his own in the long rallies, because I think Novak was a little shocked at the shot tolerance, and he was kind of waiting for Kyrgios to miss, and it wasn't really happening. But as Novak started to really lock in, especially get a feel for the backhand, which I thought was a key for him, that's when I thought Kyrgios started going bigger on the second serve and trying to get to net, because he just was like, I'm not winning from the baseline here. But it started to feel like his serve was kind of keeping him in it. There weren't a lot of aspects of the game that Nick was actually succeeding in until the fourth set, when he had a really good serving set, and he started to play very solid offensive tennis behind his serve, but still couldn't get into return games.
Yeah, agreed. For sure. Well, enough about Kyrgios and Djokovic and Nadal, the big players. Talk about some of the smaller players. I mean, who should be disappointed? I mean, I guess Felix in the first round against Cressy. I think when you mentioned that might be a bit of a tough one, considering it's serve volleyer. Cressy loves the grass. Felix, though, would have had high aspirations. But the Canadian, I guess, group in Shapovalov as well. I mean, both those guys, Shapovalov made the semis last year, Felix made the quarters.
Yeah.
Shapo's been on a terrible run of form.
Exactly. So it can't be that disappointing. Like it was a little too predictable to be disappointing, unfortunately. I will Hurkacz. I think Cressy is a brutal draw. You do not want, Cressy was confident. He volleyed great. He hit his second serve great. Felix should win. Don't get me wrong, but it's also in the same breath a totally understandable loss. It just is. Hurkacz loses to Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. that's the one that I would feel is a more egregious loss for a favorite in Hurkacz,
Yeah,
especially just the way just the way it ended with the way he played at the end of the 10-point tiebreak. He was up something like 7-4,
yeah,
and error. Davidovich Fokina wins. I mean, it was just not a good way to end it. And he went down 2-0. Fokina's defense was actually getting to Hurkacz, which shouldn't really happen on the grass. But then after Hurkacz saved the match points in the third set, Davidovich Fokina, who plays with way too much emotion, was basically holding a funeral for the match points for the next 2.5 hours and was sulking about it. And Hurkacz does not, it should have been a comeback from 2-0 down, and Hurkacz couldn't capitalize.
yeah. I feel like it's, as a tennis player, it must be the most frustrating thing when you come back from 2-0 down, you recover, and then say you lose like a final set tiebreaker. It's almost like should have just lost in straight sets. I've
Absolutely.
busted my gut for like 5 hours, like fighting to come back, and it's like if you win, it's like the best feeling ever. But you lose, and it must just be like, why? What have I done? Like
Yep.
all those match points as well saved, and it's just it must be heart wrenching. But that was a massive shock because I had him in my semi-finals, her catch, and yeah, I thought he was going to do some big things, and especially given how he played in Hala as well. But which wasn't to be, I guess, for him. And hopefully next year he can come back and do something because I just feel like grass is a surface that he has the game for. Like he really does.
Totally. He
It's just
absolutely does. But, he hasn't been good in majors in his career. He's had the one run, and that's it. He makes the semis at Wimbledon. Other than that, I mean, he's played far below his level at majors. If you look at his record at the slams compared to his record at the Masters 1000s,
yeah,
it's not even close. He's been way better at the Masters. So I don't know why that is, but it makes me kind of consider the idea that maybe he isn't handling that pressure very well.
true, agreed. And Alcaraz, I know you're a massive fan of Carlos, and I was supposed to see him at potentially see him at Queen's
Kind of
semi-finals
makes me
on
laugh.
Saturday.
I know I've just been getting that a lot. Like, I'm a massive fan of Carlos. I would just like to know, like, I don't really know what I did, but like, who isn't? Is someone not out there? Is someone like, no, he's not good?
No, I'm a big fan as well. We can be fans together.
Yeah.
No, I heard you talking to Greg Ruskin on it as well about obviously he's a Sinner backer and you're very very high on Alcaraz, so he's got one up on you, I guess.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a surprise as well. I guess we can touch upon that. But I mean, were you surprised? I guess with the one where you expect him to get as far as he did, or were you surprised that he went out the way he did against Yannick Sinner? I guess he was supposed to play at Queens, where that would have helped him, given again he's one of the younger guns who hasn't played much grass court tennis, so went into it cold. Really, just played I think the one exhibition match beforehand. What was your kind of read on it? My read was he didn't play too badly against Sinner, but there's obviously some things to improve. I felt like the backhand slice was pretty ineffective, and Sinner did really well with his foot, like his movement to return the slice on, especially with the forehand into out, was just incredible. So he moved really well to it, and he kept on pummeling Alcaraz's backhand, which in the past you would just think it's actually really solid. Like you wouldn't do that. You kind of try and mix it up, but he almost found a weakness maybe on a surface which is quicker and it keeps it lower, where Alcaraz is more uncomfortable. What was your read on it?
Yeah, well, that's a great observation, because he was getting Alcaraz to slice. He was attacking from there. So that was definitely one of the patterns that emerged often in the match. My read though is that that's the best Sinner has ever played. I felt like Sinner just played so far the match of his life, and I'm sure there will be better in the future. And look, I thought Carlos would go one round further. I thought he'd be in the quarters, and he'd lose to Novak. So there's no kind of major adjustment or major surprise for me that he lost in the round of 16 against Sinner, who put in that kind of performance. Yannick did great work with Darren Cahill to get ready for the grass. And, there were a lot of ways where he was just handling the surface better. Definitely had a good game plan against Carlos. The way he was hitting second serves into the body against everyone in the tournament was so effective. And Alcaraz's forehand, it just didn't seem to adjust well to the grass. And it's something I am a little bit concerned about with Carlos, because I think on all surfaces this could be an issue. He needs to understand that if the forehand consistency isn't there, he's going to lose because of it. It's going to be something that is it was a problem against Zverev. It was a problem in this match. Like, you have to be on when you have attacking forehands, you have to be pretty automatic. The great players will all be pretty automatic. And Carlos, I think he has the ability to get there and do that. But it feels like some matches he's missing a lot. And it's just not something that you can afford to do if you want to be elite. So that's one area, but ultimately, not a lot of expectations coming into this Wimbledon. The performance against Otto was pretty incredible, and he ran up against a fantastic Yannick Sinner. So no concern for the future. I still think that great things are ahead for Alcaraz at Wimbledon in the future.
Yeah, you heard it here first from super fan Gill. I'm just joking. Yeah, no, I agree with the forehand comment, because I almost feel like he has so many different looks on the forehand and ways of hitting it. Maybe sometimes he kind of gets a little bit muddled about which forehand to utilize. We know he can hit a flatter one, which is almost kind of akin to like a Roger. He can go for like a whipped kind of lasso forehand, or buggy whip as you call it, like Nadal's as well. And then he's got a few variations in between. And I feel like sometimes he just gets a bit stuck and maybe doesn't choose the right one in terms of shot selection. So it's something to work on. I'm sure he's still so young. It will come, and as you say, I'm sure it will be automated, and that will help him for sure, given that he's got a more attacking game. Yannick Sinner, is anything more on him you want to touch upon? Because I thought, as you said, like, did really well with Darren Cahill, but 0-4 coming into Wimbledon, and no real expectations. I thought he'd probably go out early, actually, and in the end, played really well. The serve looks to have been bulked up. There's still some things to work around there, but the speed's up, and he's hitting his spots better than he was, and just seems really, really powerful from the back of the court as well. Moved, I thought, very similar to. I feel like the only two players that can slide on the grass effectively is him and Djokovic, and he's actually able to do similar things to Djokovic on the grass, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I agree. And the return of serve is also something that I think is a major asset in Sinner's game. I'm I'm a lot more positive about him after this event, given how he played. Not only against Alcaraz, but first two sets against Djokovic. But he was lacking that statement win. The Alcaraz win is the best of his career, and part of that is because it's a good win. Part of that is because there hasn't been a lot. He has won a lot over the last couple of years, no doubt about it. But he hasn't beaten elite players. He really hasn't. His last, the last great win before that was against Zverev at 2020 at Roland Garros. Zverev said after the match that he was sick, so some people discredit that win even. But I choose to give him credit for that win. But that was massive for him. Where does he go from here? I mean, I do hope that he starts to work on the volleys. That's going to hurt him. He needs to be more comfortable making not difficult volleys. That's okay. Like, because he doesn't need to be a player who forces himself up to net, but he needs to be a player who, behind a good approach shot, can finish easy volleys and never miss them.
Yeah, no, agreed. If you can add that little bit to his game, as you said, doesn't need to be expansive volleyer, but someone who can at least just be comfortable to actually come to the net and finish it off. I mean, Taylor Fritz is almost quite allergic to coming to the net as well. I feel like maybe we saw that against Nadal as well. I don't want to keep you too long, so I guess we can wrap it up here. Before we do, though, I just got a couple of questions. First one is, in terms of your match of the tournament, what was your match of the tournament? One that you enjoyed watching the most? You can give me two if you want. It doesn't have to be one.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about it. So I would give two. I would say Nadal over Fritz. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, as much as it will be forgotten, because Nadal didn't win the tournament. That's how kind of it
Yeah.
works. Maybe Nadal fans will remember it, but yeah, to beat Fritz without a serve like that and the forehand performance, it was remarkable. My match of the tournament on the women's side is still Serena against Harmony Tan, and I don't care what it looked like. I don't care that it was ugly. That's how Harmony Tan plays. She mucks it up. She makes it look ugly. So I mean, I know that Serena got some flack for her level, which was expected. Look, was this elite women's tennis? Did this look incredible? No, it did not. But that was incredible to watch. That was so dramatic. The crowd was amazing. The drama was there. And it was also very engaging to me tactically because Harmony Tan is such a unique tactical player. So I couldn't get enough of that match. I loved that match, and that's my pick on the women's side. And I don't care what anybody thinks.
Yeah, yeah. You know, if we had more time, we'd do the women's as well. But I'll do that by myself, the women's side. But I think, yeah, Harmony Tan is great. I mean, it's great for tennis, right? To have different types of players, and that's what you want. You don't want everyone to just play the same way. I guess her against Ribas Tormo probably wasn't the most exciting match to watch, but apart from that, you know, when you have two players like that, it can be a little bit. But then it's the same with if you have two big servers. Right? A lot of people think Opelka Isner is boring to watch. It's fair enough.
Yeah,
But, you know,
yeah, I think so. I mean,
thing.
Sorribes Tormo though is one of my favorite players to watch on tour because she's so unique.
She is
And
unique.
you know, she's not. It's not as much as just like she's a grinder. It's a grinder. She's a grinder who volleys well and slices her backhand.
Yeah, she does.
Right. I mean, it's really. I love her game.
It's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, but
is.
it's one that she knows her game. She reminds me of one of those club players who knows what she's good at and then just sticks to that. I know I'm good at this. I'm gonna slice my backhand. I know I've got a really good backhand slice. Drive back and forget about it. Forehand, okay, I know that I can go deep and with a lot of top spin, a lot of kind of loop or elevation on the forehand and frustrate people. I've got good shot tolerance. And then, yeah, I can come to the net as well and mix it up. And I feel like, oh, that's it. Great. Anything else? No, I don't need to worry about it. This is what I'm good at. I'm going to stick to this. And it works for the most part.
I'm certainly not going to serve.
Yeah. Not serve aces anyway. But yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. And then in terms of your, was there a favorite moment that you had in the tournament?
Novak's Spider-Man backhand pass is probably I mean, you know, it's the shot of the tournament. It's look, did it become more iconic based on what he did after hitting the shot? 100%. But look, this is entertainment. This is that's what the business is. So I loved that shot. And I like that he did the Spider-Man again after winning the title. So that was great.
Yeah, it's all for the Netflix documentary. That's the Netflix doc. Yeah, exactly. And funniest moment to finish off?
I got to be prepared next time. I know
sorry, next time I'll prep you.
Well, you always ask this, and I'm never prepared, so that's my fault. Oh, well, you know what? The funniest moment was Tamara Korpach. Tamara Korpach was playing doubles with Harmony Tan, and she was very upset that Tan pulled out of the doubles after her match with Serena. And Korpach was like, "You've just played 3 hours. You're not going to play doubles? Like, if you can't play doubles, then don't even try to play doubles. Just play singles if you're going to be like this." So then they made up, and Harmony, you know, Korpach was like, "Okay, I forgive you. It's okay." Because Harmony Tan was like, "I'm injured." And then Harmony Tan beats Sarah Sorribes Tormo. And then Korpach makes a post saying, like, "I'm so glad your leg healed so quickly. Great to see." I mean, it was just fantastic. And then she claimed she wasn't being sarcastic. I don't believe her. That was definitely sarcastic. Yeah, so Tamara Korpach's Instagram is definitely the funniest moment.
Put on blast. I love how she was like, she asked me to play doubles, and she's like, and I've lost an opportunity. And it was really dramatic, and I was like, I've never seen this before. It's crazy. Like she didn't think, oh, I'll message her. She was like, no, Instagram and Twitter. Let's go to that first. Put it on
Right.
blast. I was like, crazy, absolutely crazy. I love how I didn't know they'd made up as well. I love how they made up, and then after I was thinking as soon as she saw that she was playing singles and made a run, she was going to be like, what's going on? Because she kept on playing singles, but I mean, I guess maybe Harmony Tan should have just been honest and been like, look, I think I'm going to make a run at the singles. I'm not, I might have a little niggle.
Korpach is right. That's Bush League. Like, you got to play. You got to play, especially if you're going to It's one thing if you partner with a singles player, and then I think there's a mutual understanding, like Kyrgios Kokonakis, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like there's an understanding there that one of them might pull out. It's cool, but like Tamara Korpach actually wants to play doubles, so you can't pull out on her.
Yeah, agreed.
Unless you have to.
Yeah, no, I agreed. It was one of those things where you feel for her, but you also think, why did you put this on social media? But it was funny anyway, entertaining to see. Gill, is there anything you want to touch on before we wrap up?
Hit it all. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. As always, Gill, really appreciate it. Guys, if you haven't done so already, of course, check out Gill on Twitter, YouTube, of course, and podcast platforms, Monday Match Analysis, and Gill Gross on YouTube as well, and Gill_Gross on Twitter. Thanks, Gill, as always. Guys, remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you for the next video. I'll be releasing, hopefully, well, the women, I've already done the men's, but the women's are either released after this video, or you might have already seen it if it's come out before. Who knows? We don't know. It's all random. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe for a while.